humor is absolutely important. And it is not a boondoggle activity. Take a salesperson, for example. A salesperson pushing products, people buy from people they like. Take a manager, for example. You work harder for a manager you like. You work harder, you contribute more for an employer, for a boss, for someone you enjoy working with. In any organization, people do more, work harder, contribute more, buy more for people they enjoy working with or hanging around with. So what does that mean? Humor contributes to the likability factor. That likability factor is so important in business, in friendships, even in romantic relationships. People pay money to listen to comedians, right? People will go spend $100 to go listen to a great comedian. So that's why humor is so important. And the reason for hosting this workshop, and I actually delivered this workshop in 2011 for the first time, and I actually delivered it at this club, but well before most of you were members. In fact, only Sudha and Sunil were here at that time. But it works well at this time because our humorous contest is coming up in a few weeks. So my objectives today are really to help you learn the elements and characteristics of humor. Then understand the various types of humor. And lastly, the practical aspect is start writing a joke. So I passed out some white pieces of paper. There's plenty more. If you don't have it, I'll come by. But the last 15 minutes of this workshop is for you to practice writing, and then that's where tabletopers will come in, where I'll invite you to come up and give a speech. Deliver a joke. Now, there's no time expectation, but if we have enough time, hopefully all of you will come up and deliver one joke during the course of the workshop. Elements of humor. So I want to preface this. This is not my material. This is material that I've taken from Toastmasters manual and just put my own twist on it. So I want you to remember this acronym, and it'll come up. But TIRST. So every single joke has all 6 elements in them. Target and hostility. What does that mean? Every joke has a target. Person, place, idea, thing. And hostility just means how subtle or how obvious your humor is. Exaggeration. Every joke has exaggeration to it. That's what brings out the laughter. But on the flip side, every joke has realism to it. Because if there wasn't some realism, you wouldn't really buy in to the humor. And I say you don't necessarily have to take notes. I'd be happy to send you this slide deck. But if you'd like to take notes, feel free to. Okay, here's the kicker, the surprise. The reason why the surprise is so important and where many people fail is there is not sufficient surprise when delivering a punchline. So the surprise element, you lead the audience in one direction and then, boom, the punchline takes them in an unintended direction. And that's where the comic relief happens. Emotion and delivery. Every joke has to connect and resonate with the audience. Now, I've been to some comedy clubs where the jokes were very vulgar, and I didn't find them funny. But there's a whole group of people that find those vulgar jokes, they enjoy them. But for me, I didn't connect to them. So on that emotional level, I didn't like it. But the delivery is also important because if you talk like this, your jokes aren't going to come across as funny, right? People won't like them. So delivery means how animated you are, your facial expressions, your lack of facial expressions, your tone, your vocal variety. All that factors into the delivery. And you watch Jimmy Fallon, Jay Leno back in the days, these late night television shows, their facial expressions, their delivery is what, Johnny Carson, for example, his facial expressions were really what sold the joke on many occasions. Okay, here's a joke that I wrote. We Indians are very economical. We are always looking for deals and bargains. We'll drive 10 miles and spend $10 in gas to save 10 cents on bananas. Okay? So let me ask you, what is the target? Indians. Okay? And what is the realism? Yeah, no, we're very economical. That's the realism, right? We're always looking for bargains and deals, right? Okay? What is the exaggeration?
10 miles. $10.
Yeah, so this is also part of the realism. We'll drive 10 miles, right? What is the surprise? Save 10 cents, right? And then, of course, the last two aspects of terse, emotion and delivery, is how I delivered it. If you also notice, what else stands out in this joke?
The 10.
The 10. The threes, right? The power of threes, which you learned last time. The 10, 10, 10. So in a way, I'm connecting to you with the 10. And that's how you remember. The other thing I'm connecting with you is, look around the room. Okay? Now, I delivered the same joke at Cisco, and there were quite a few Indians, but I just changed to Asians. But in this group where everyone's Indian, it makes sense, because this is probably true for you. I know it's true for my parents. Okay, so you understood the characteristics. I'm sorry, you understood the elements of humor. Now we're going to talk about the characteristics. So, very, very simple. There are 4 characteristics of a joke. The setup. This is the information to entice the audience, to get them heading down a certain path. Why do we pause? Yeah, but this is before the punchline. Pause creates tension, right? You want to create tension, because what tension does is then when the punchline comes, people have that moment to then absorb it, and then you pause again, which creates the comic relief, which creates the giggles, the laughter, the smile, the chuckle. Okay, so setup, pause, punchline, pause. Now, again, notice when you've been delivering jokes, have you utilized these elements and where you can incorporate this in a joke? Now, let's use this next example. My friend suffers from a terrible disease called OCS. Only child syndrome. Okay? So setup, I paused, punchline, I'm pausing again. Okay? He always got what he wanted. Always. And he always wanted a brother or a sister. But his parents decided that after he was born, 1 child was enough. So again, setup, pause, punchline, pause again. Right? And you can even look at this joke and say, what is the target? What is the target? Right? What is the realism? Right? What is the exaggeration? Terrible disease? Right? You know, so all those elements are in this joke. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the types of humor. I don't want you to get caught up in which category it fits in, because there are many categories and some jokes will fall in multiple categories. So don't get caught up in that. I will just briefly go through them so you get an idea. So exaggeration is one. And the joke I mentioned about Indians being frugal and being economical, that's an example of exaggeration. Because I said we'll drive 10 miles and spend $10 in gas. Incongruent ideas. So you're taking two things that wouldn't necessarily work together, but you're finding a context where they can. So statistics show that sea levels are rising. And did you know that most populous cities are by a body of water? New York, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. But do you know which one city I wish was underwater? Washington, D.C. So I took the idea of how, Congress or the government and, the bodies of water, global warming, connected the two. So combination is just the opposite in that you're taking two ideas that are very similar and you're connecting them together. Okay, reverse. So similar to where we talked about surprise, reverse is just taking them down in one direction and then twisting it. So you may know Sunil and Sudha have been married for a very long time, and every year they celebrate their anniversary by going to some exotic trip. And they come back feeling just overjoyed and having had so much fun. And the reason why that is because Sudha goes to Hawaii and Sunil goes to Tahiti. So here the reverse is that you thought I was going to talk about them going together, and I mentioned that they don't go together. So you may have heard play on words or double entendre. This is really taking something that has multiple meanings. So my BS degree is great at helping me give BS, right? Or when you say someone is full of crap, and then, oh yeah, it's because they're always constipated, right? So you take the multiple meanings. And definition is basically just explicitly stating what it is. So for example, you may have heard a mind is a terrible thing to waste, or waste is a terrible thing to mind, right? So those examples are just spelling it out. Okay, implication this is one of my favorites because it's selling an idea, but in a way without explicitly stating it. So when I graduated college, people said, travel the world. Go to India, see the north, the south, the east, and the west. I said, why do I need to go all the way to India? I'll just go to Fremont. I think I skipped one. Oh, understatement. So this is similar to implication, but it's basically selling the idea in a very subtle way. So you may have heard this. This was actually a joke from a late night talk show host. But he says, if at first you don't succeed, try again. If you still fail, keep trying. And if you still fail, just ride the coattails of your father and grandfather and become president of the United States. So, a little jab at George W. Bush. So those are the types of humor. How are we doing on time? Oh, 12 minutes. Okay, good. So we have lots of time. So this is what I wanted to do is give you a lot of practice. It wouldn't be a workshop if you didn't have the practical aspect of it. So let's get started. I always say start with what you know. If you've heard my speeches, and as Sunil said, I've heard my humor speeches, I always make fun of myself. Self-deprecating humor is the best form of laughter because it is what you know the best. And also, if you can laugh, as Santosh, you said earlier, right? If you can laugh at yourself, then you're able to really enjoy and you're able to share in other people's laughter, right? So what I did is I took, this isn't necessarily me, but I took the Indian stereotype, right? So we're Indian. Probably most of you are engineers. Probably many of your families are frugal. You probably couldn't play sports. You probably got an arranged marriage, right? You like Bollywood movies. There's a huge emphasis on education, right? Your parents made you get a master's degree, I bet. You have the nuclear family. So maybe not here, but in India you probably had your in-laws and your parents and your aunt, uncle, and you're a techie. So you like the iPhone and Samsung and Android. So these are stereotypes that can easily depict many in the Indian community. But this may not represent you, but I say start with what you know. So years ago I gave a few speeches about growing up Indian. My parents immigrated here, right, and I was born here, but I still talk about the Indian experience, but having been born here. And I talk about, my parents being frugal, how we used to save the Taco Bell sauces, right? And the cups, the yogurt cups, right? Wash them out and reuse them, right? The stamps that don't get, the stamps that get passed through by the postal service, you peel them off and you save them. So we talked about that. I talked about how I couldn't play, it was my dream to play professional football and I couldn't play sports, right? I talk a lot about emphasis on education. So I'm really, really wearing out these stereotypes. But that's what I know, and that's what makes it funny for me. So as we get started, there is a piece of white paper in front of you. And if you don't have one, let me know if you need another one. And there's plenty, so take more. So before we get into the semantics of it, the idea here is we're going to create a mind map, a pictorial illustration of your life and things happening in your life. And the idea is we're going to link, and focus on the word link, incongruent and congruent ideas in your life. And then we're going to exaggerate. We're going to take these examples, we're going to exaggerate. And then, of course, the joke should support your theme. So what I'd like you to do is, I don't know, however it's easy for you, maybe fold it in half and forwards. But we're going to draw 4 circles in each box. We're going to draw 1 circle in each box. So I'll give you an example. So this is it. And the last one I kind of left blank, but you could add a fourth circle. So draw ovals or circles. And the far left corner is about you. What I mean is your typical stereotype. So I say the nuclear family. What is it about you, right? If your family, right? If you have a wife, a husband, if you have kids, you have your in-laws staying with you. So this is just examples of, I'm not married, by the way, but I will show you later that there is so much humor in the wedding, the marriage relationship, the in-law relationship, the parent relationship, the child relationship. There are so many sources of humor that, so I, for the sake of this, say I'm married. Okay? So you say about me. And what I want you to do is just draw lines, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just put some examples. Okay? And keep it limited. Maybe just put 4 for each one. Because we're going to actually expand each of these examples into more categories. Then find something that is a source of inspiration or a source of frustration for you. Because I use Toastmasters, and you will see, I will give you examples of my jokes. A lot of jokes come from Toastmasters. And so I use Toastmasters, but you can use work. You can use another hobby that you're a part of. Sunil, you can use your business, your entrepreneurship. Right? Ramya, you can do your job working as a doctor, right? Whatever works for you. And then I want you to have one about current events, because again, current events there's such a grand source of humor from current events. Now, when I wrote this a year ago, and I did update it, but the Olympics were going on, so I had the Olympics. Global warming is obviously always an issue. Civil unrest in the Middle East. The tech, economy, elections. Last year we had elections. I put Russia on there. But again, this is your experience. And then what I did here, you don't have to copy this, but I created a box here with online jokes, YouTube, newspaper. So this is where you borrow. And there's so much humor out there, you want to borrow. Always source, always be respectful to the person who created it and source it if you use someone word for word. But most of the humor out there, you can corroborate this, most of the humor out there is already borrowed. Somebody already came up with it and you're just changing it a little bit here and there. Most of the jokes that you see on late night television, somebody wrote it years ago. It's just a slight change in experience or circumstance and a new joke comes out of it. So now I want to show you how you can link things. And just let me know when we hit 20, because then, or even 18. Oh, 19, okay. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and I'm going to give you some time to do it. So let's take civil unrest and your wife, right? So here's how you link it, right? So what quality of here do you also recognize here? Now again, we're exaggerating. This is the whole point. But violence, and maybe your wife can be violent if you don't do the dishes. So here's a joke, right? Have you seen the news lately about the civil unrest in the Middle East? Oh, that's nothing. You just see my wife when I don't do the dishes. See, you're connecting two ideas, right? oh, they say that there's so much hot air in the atmosphere. I think my father-in-law is contributing with his big ego. So you're connecting ideas, right? Toastmasters, evaluations. Every time I feel depressed, I come to Toastmasters. Because where else are you going to get someone clap for you every time you stand up and every time you sit down? So, you see, you're connecting ideas.